Welcome, everyone. Just want to make sure you guys can hear me. Go ahead and drop some love in the chat if you're joining us, and let me know specifically if you can hear me okay, and also where you're watching from. All right, so we are streaming live today on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and Telegram. So we are on the largest number of platforms that we've ever streamed on. Good to see y'all here. All right, we've got a few people joining us. YouTube rules. I guess so. Hey, it helps us get the word out. Hope everybody's doing really well. See folks joining from different parts. A lot of folks on YouTube, which is great. Our Instagram channel is pretty new, so I don't really expect to get a lot of attendance there. We'll see what happens. But we're there. I'll probably add Rumble next time. I realized I forgot to add Rumble, so that will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It would be about 6 different platforms and growing. Okay, so this is live Q&A. What that means is you are invited to ask your questions, anything related to really anything at all, but I would encourage you to ask questions related to what we study and teach at the Freedom Studio. So go ahead and queue up your questions. The more thought you put into your question, the better an answer I'll be able to provide you. But keep in mind also that I'm not, I'm not omnipotent or omniscient. I don't have all the answers. So take everything I say under advisement and continue to do your own study. Okay, but let me know what questions you have so we can engage in some lively conversation. And depending on how the questions go, I mean, I'll probably be here I can keep going for a couple of hours easily. So invite your friends and family to join us. And yeah, let's get this party going. Also, you can share updates. How is everybody doing? How are you progressing? How did you find out about us? Do you even know who we are? Or did you just stumble on this video? So it's like we have one question already that's worth addressing. What is better, an irrevocable or revocable trust? So which one is better? Okay, so first of all, what is the difference between a revocable and irrevocable trust? Go ahead and comment in the chat wherever you're joining from. What is the principal difference between a revocable and an irrevocable trust? Go ahead and comment in the chat. What is the main difference between a revocable and irrevocable trust? Go ahead and comment your answer in the chat. What is the difference? Okay. You guys want me to give you the answer, right? Do it. You couldn't even Google it or chat GPT it. The revocability of a trust has to do with whether or not once you grant the property or assets into the trust, whether they can be taken back. So remember, a trust involves a grantor, or also known as a trustor or a settlor. And that's the one who has some initial property that's going to be granted into the trust that will then be managed by the trustees for the benefit of one or more beneficiaries. So revocable versus irrevocable simply means whether the grantor can take it back. Basically, can take back the property they granted into the trust. Okay, so when a trust is revocable, what that means is the grantor can at any time revoke the trust, which basically means I'm taking back my property. Okay. Irrevocable means that once the grantor grants that property in or assets into the trust, that there are no takebacks. Okay. So given that difference, what would be the advantage of making it irrevocable? Why would it be an advantage to make a trust irrevocable? Go ahead and comment your answer in the chat. What would be the advantage of using an irrevocable trust, given the fact that you can't, as the grantor, you do not have the ability to take back the property once you grant it into the trust? Why would there be an advantage associated with that? Go ahead and comment your answer in the chat. Someone asked if we changed our channel name. Yes, but that was done many months ago when we rebranded from conditionalacceptance.com to the Freedom Studio. And I believe that was at either the end of last year or the beginning of this year. Can't remember the exact date that we did that. But yes, if you subscribe to the channel before we changed the name, then you would notice that. Okay. So to answer the original question, I'm not sure I would say better versus worse, but an irrevocable trust will provide better asset protection. An irrevocable trust will protect the assets that were put into the trust more robustly than a revocable trust. And in fact, because of that, at the Freedom Studio, most of the trusts that we create or encourage you to create are going to be irrevocable. Now, someone might come along and say, but hang on a second, if the trust is irrevocable, then I'm stuck. Once I grant property into the trust, there's nothing I can do. That's not entirely true. That's not entirely true. It has to do with the authority or the rights and privileges, I guess you could say, or the control that the trustees have. So the grantor can't take it back, but the trustees may have the ability to sell the property, to assign it to a different trust. So you're not going to be completely boxed in. However, the grantor of an irrevocable trust cannot go back later and take it back. That's the main difference. So some of you guys got that right. I saw some comments. It looks like Instagram comments don't stream here on the streaming platform, but I do see them separately. So unfortunately, I can't show the Instagram comments here, but I am seeing them in the separate window. So that's great. Just learning how to manage these different windows here. Yep. So irrevocable means the grantor can't take the property back. Cool. What other questions do you guys have? And also comment in the chat, comment the number 3 if you have already set up at least one private irrevocable trust for any of your concerns. Comment a 3 in the chat. I'd love to see where people are at. Comment a 3 in the chat if you've already set up at least one private irrevocable trust for asset protection, for operating commerce privately, maybe for your family, for your business, for either, both. Just want to kind of see where people are at. Comment a 3 in the chat. If you've set up at least one private irrevocable trust. Nobody? You got to get your butt over to the trustee network then. So let me share a link here. Everything you're going to need to get started is going to be here. So let me just share this link real quick. We've made it super easy to get started for people who are just kind of strolling in here and aren't sure where to start. So let me go ahead and share that link. So that's the link. I think it shows up on this side. I think it's mirrored. I'm not sure, but it's somewhere here at the bottom. The freedom.studio. Super easy. Jump over if you want to really, I mean, anything you want to start with. You want to start learning how to create your trust to protect your assets, which is a great starting point. Even if you want to start learning how to discharge, I would say it's almost better to look at how to protect your assets first so that nobody can come after them. So having said that, let me see what other questions you guys are coming up with. EN asks, which trust do you put your authenticated birth certificate? Whichever one you want. Whichever one you want. How do you plan to use it? How do you plan to use your authenticated birth certificate? Sarah's asking how to get started. Go to the link I shared, the freedom.studio. The first link there is the high-level strategy. Actually, let me share my screen here and I'll show you guys what we got. So let me see. Present. Share screen. Let me know if you guys can see that. Let me know if you guys can see it. This is what you'll see if you go to the freedom.studio. So the very first link is the high-level strategy. That's a PDF document, basically, essentially a blueprint that we created to answer that question that most of you, that it's the number one question we get. You know, what do I start with? Where do I start? What do I focus on first? Different variations of that question. And so we created this high-level strategy that basically encapsulates what we focus on at the Freedom Studio. Now, obviously, if you go to different organizations or depending on who you study with, everybody's going to have a slightly different take, maybe a slightly different focus. Some organizations have a similar focus, but this is really the substance and spirit of what we focus on principally at the Freedom Studio. So, and it's a very short document. It's just a few pages. So it kind of gives you a nice outline. And if it resonates with you, it also gives you some good pointers on for you to start thinking about, well, what should I focus on? Like, what should I focus on first? How do I kind of get started? The next link is the private memberships. other than just, lurking here and on social media, this is a great way to get started. We have 3 different memberships right now. We will probably have other memberships starting soon. In fact, Kathleen and I are working on a new membership. Can't really talk about it yet, but it's going to be very powerful, and it's going to be something very special. But for now, we have 3 different memberships. The value of the memberships is you get access to all the back-end courses, which is a growing library of courses and materials. And we do almost weekly private study sessions on Zoom. So for example, today, a few hours ago, we did our private coaching session, which is a smaller group on Zoom. We only had a few people show up, so you get tons of attention. I actually was hoping that more people would show up. It may just have to do with the time of day, so we're going to start doing some in the evening as well. But the memberships, very easy to start. And you get access to tons of resources. You get to meet with me on Zoom a couple times a month at least. So it's a great way to start. We do have the free private Telegram community, which is very active, almost 4,000 members of that community. So that's a great way to get started. And great way to network with other people in our community. You can also schedule a consultation with one of our team members. Here you can get a link to our website, and then we have all of our different social media. So go ahead and stop that share. Just go to thefreedom.studio, and you'll have everything you need there. So let's see what you guys are saying. So EN says that they've set up at least 1 trust. Great. If you're willing to share, would love to hear more about what the purpose of that trust is. What was the reason you decided to set one up? Anything else that you'd like to share about that, about your experience? Jess has also set up a trust. M. Maka asks, do you recommend a private and a public? I never recommend any kind of public trust. I know maybe some people will, but what could also be called a statutory trust. So I personally would never recommend a public trust. There may be some folks out there that for whatever reason would recommend one. Jess asked, I missed class on business credit. Yes. It's been a busy week, so we're probably a little behind schedule in uploading that. But yeah, it's in our work queue. It's in our work queue. Corey just joined this week on Tuesday as our new director of operations. And some of you folks will have a chance to meet him. He was actually at the private coaching session today. So huge step forward for the Freedom Studio, because I've been basically doing everything, and that's not really sustainable. What I really want to be doing is spending time educating, interacting with you guys, creating content, creating videos, improving our courses, running our workshops. We're going to launch a new workshop. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, having Corey Mock on the team as director of operations is a huge step forward. So really great to have him on board. And hopefully these things that tend to take a little time, like uploading these videos, hopefully everything will run a little bit smoother now that we have some extra help on hand. So I appreciate you guys being patient. Here I am says, I found out about you from video discussion with BJW. Great. Welcome. It's great to have you with us. It's great to have you with us. All right, what other questions you guys have? You guys are kind of quiet today. If you don't have questions, I'm just going to start blabbering on about all the announcements. I'm just going to start talking about what's going on. So, but I want to give you guys, I want to answer your questions. So go ahead and comment in the chat. And I will keep an eye on Instagram separately for those of you on Instagram, since I can't view the comments on this platform on StreamYard. So I will keep an eye on those comments. So what questions do you guys have? Okay, so I already mentioned, just kind of continue with where we're taking this. So wearing my hat as executive director and educational director, I guess, if you want to call it. I mean, these aren't super formal titles, but essentially that's the role that I'm wearing, title I'm wearing at this point. One of my biggest goals for this year, for the rest of this year, is to really, really build out all the course content that we have as part of all the memberships. So that's why it was so important to bring in Corey on, so that we could kind of separate out the educational and operational side of what we're doing, so we could serve you, because we have a pretty large community. Like I said, we got more than 1,000 members of Telegram. I'm sorry, nearly 4,000. We have more than 1,000 members of our different memberships and growing. So it's really important that we want you guys to have access to cutting edge, to the best materials. So one of the things we're going to be, one of the initiatives I'm working on right now is to build out more video course content. So some of you guys have seen that. It's just getting started, but we're going to really double down on the video courses, the video course material coming up here. So Carla is talking about maiden name versus married name. So Carla, what specific process are you trying? What's your objective? Because it sounds like you're making reference to the secured party / creditor process without actually referring to it by name. I mean, what is your specific objective? What are you trying to achieve? Like high level, bring it high level. What's your objective? Ian is asking, is it worth to go the hassle of authenticating a birth certificate? It depends on what you want to use it for. There can be certain advantages to having that instrument, but it depends on how you want to use it. Social media asks, do you find it hard? It's hard to discharge credit card debt. Well, hard is a very subjective term. I mean, it's a very relative term. So not sure what you mean by hard. It takes time to learn, and you also have to choose how you want to discharge, meaning mainly what jurisdiction you want to discharge in. And the main choices really boil down to equity on the one hand and common law on the other. So those are two different jurisdictions. So from what I've seen, equity is generally the best choice. However, it's important to keep in mind, since you mentioned credit cards specifically, it's important to remember that with equity, whatever you discharge is going to close out the account. Equity doesn't work. Equity delights to do justice, but not by halves. That's the maxim from equity. So if you use equity to discharge a credit card, the account's going to be closed. It's not like you can keep discharging it month after month. So just keep that in mind. Carla is coming back to clarify secured party creditor. Great. So my question is, why do you want to become a secured party / creditor? Why do you want to complete that process? What's the objective you're looking to achieve? Carla says, I want out of this felonious system. Well, in that case, you should definitely not do the SPC process, because SPC process, you're going to be doing a lot of filings on the public side. You're going to actually create an account with the Treasury, which is obviously probably part of the system that you're talking about. So I wouldn't do that. So that's probably not compatible with your goals. So if you can clarify what your goals are, we can point you in the right direction. Ian is asking, what are the advantages of authentic your birth certificate? That's a really good question. I haven't completed that process myself, so I'm not probably not the best one to answer that. I've done, I have it in process, but I've been traveling abroad, so I haven't really been able to finish that process and go into it. I know that one advantage is that you can obtain what's called a CPN, or a credit privacy number, which is almost like a private reboot of a social security number that's completely separate. But again, I haven't done that process, so I can't speak from firsthand experience. I just know that that is something that you can use these double authenticated birth certificates for, is that it can generate a CPN. So that would be my answer, but I haven't done that specifically. Social media said, I feel like I'm talking to all of social media when I refer to you. All of social media has bought our $3 course. No. Well, welcome. First of all, great step. Hopefully you have a lot of success. Remember that you can also get access to all the courses through the membership. So that might be more advantageous depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But it's a great first step. We want to wish you a lot of success. Just keep us posted about your specific goals, and you know, we're going to make sure that you get into the right direction. You know, we're going to help you move forward. Carla, further clarifying, I want to be in control of my life. Okay, so you're in the right place. So maybe this is a good point for me to kind of share with you a little more about why the Freedom Studio, why this platform exists. What are we basically trying to do here? So it's all about self-actualization. It's about stepping into your sovereignty. It's about stepping into your purpose and why you came here. So you are here for a reason. I am here for a reason. You are here for a reason. Only you can truly know why you're here and what your purpose is. You may not be clear about that, because the way the world works is it creates a lot of confusion. So it does take work sometimes to figure that out. But one thing I'm sure is that you are here for a purpose. You have a purpose. You're here for a reason. And it's probably not just to struggle and survive to pay your bills and just get by in life. But in order to step out of that, you need to acquire certain knowledge and certain skills, and you need to step fully into your sovereignty and step into your empowered being. And that is the mission of the Freedom Studio. Okay, as the name suggests, we are all about freedom. The word studio here implies that this is a very hands-on and practical place of study, where we roll up our sleeves and we study. And what do we study? Well, the first thing we study is natural law, because natural law, which is essentially, you can think of it as like the built-in laws of creation, the operating conditions of the reality that basically determine what's going to happen based on what we do or how we behave. That's what gives us the outcomes. Okay. And so you think about things like the law of attraction, the Hermetic principles, the 7 Hermetic principles. these are kind of like popularizations of natural law, but there's always a deeper layer. And the point is that this is not just some random happenstance reality. There are very specific conditions that are operating here. And when we can tap into those, we can generate outcomes more consciously. So the Freedom Studio is really about helping you tap into the reality so that you can self-actualize, so that you can step into your sovereignty, and therefore you can step into your purpose. Okay, so nothing gives me more satisfaction than helping you to realize your true purpose in life. And that's essentially, I see it as my purpose, just like I've made it my life's mission to self-actualize, to be the best that I can and to step into my purpose. I want to help you do the same. And that's why the Freedom Studio exists. Okay, that's at a very high level. So I know some of you guys asked me to explain that, and I feel like I've done a good job. If you want to ask more specific questions about it, but at a high level, I want to help you learn how reality works, tap into those laws, spiritual laws, so that you can self-actualize, so that you can be free, which is your birthright. Be free to do what? Whatever your purpose in life is. Only you know what that is. Only you can answer that question for yourself. And obviously we can help you to find the answer, but we can't give you the answer. Carla wants her kids to be set when she's no longer around. That's a noble goal. And we can definitely help with that at the Freedom Studio, not only in terms of the mindset and what I was just explaining vis-a-vis the study of natural law and how things work, but even through very specific practical strategies. So going back to what we were talking about earlier about the private trusts, the wealthy families have known for a long time that trusts are a way to protect assets and to build up generational wealth and to make sure that future generations have access to what they need to. So that's fantastic. So by learning how to create and manage private trusts, that's going to be a huge, huge step forward for you to take care of your future generations. Carla's also sick of all the debt. I'm sure a lot of people come to the Freedom Studio because they're frustrated with the constant onslaught of taxes and debts and how to deal with that. And also there's a lot of promises out there that say, oh, you can claim your credits, you can do this, you can, cash in your Sestigate trust. And I'm here to tell you that there's a lot of big promises out there, but there's very few strategies that actually work. And most of the ones that work correctly do require you to actually roll up your sleeves and learn properly how to apply these processes. But if you learn it, for example, equity, you are definitely going to learn how to discharge debts. So don't be discouraged, but also don't look for a quick fix to get rich quick. Don't fall for the hype. Okay. Study, become a student of this, and the answers will present themselves. Ian is asking why I'm in Colombia and not Argentina. First of all, Colombia in English is spelled with an O in the middle, not a U, just to correct you there. The reason I'm in Colombia, well, I guess there's a couple reasons. I have a fairly long history with Colombia. I first came here in 2012, so about 13 years ago. So I have kind of spent a lot of time in the country. I know it very well. It's almost like a second home for me. And so I came back here more recently because I needed to get some dental work done. My teeth were really in bad shape, and I wanted to work with a dentist that I already knew here, who, among other things, was going to charge me about 1/10 of what I would have to pay in the US to get my teeth done. Having said that, I have nothing against Argentina. I would definitely love to visit. So I will definitely keep that, I'm assuming, invitation, kind of a sideways invitation. I'll keep that under advisement, and hopefully I get a chance to visit that region as well at some point. Bernie says, hi, David, Aussie here. Good day, mate. Good day. What's a good place to start when wanting to set up a trust? Well, first of all, you should learn, obviously, as much as you can about trusts, how they operate, specifically private irrevocable trusts. I've been studying trusts for about 6 months now, pretty intensely. It may not take you 6 months to master the basics. I mean, I think my objective would be for someone to master it in probably 1 to 3 months with, diligent study. We have some great material. If you really want to dive in, I would join the trustee network. So just go to the freedom.studio, scroll down to the memberships, and then check out the trustee network. That would be a good place to start. We have a very lively crowd. And I believe the time we meet every week is Aussie friendly. It's not too early or too late in the day, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully I'm correct about that. Carla says, I've been studying a lot, feeling a bit overwhelmed. Yeah, it's completely comprehensible. There's a lot of content. There's a lot of chatter out there. Obviously, as an educator, I'm constantly monitoring and following and even watching content from a lot of different creators and educators. And I can relate to that. One of the 3 pillars of our community of the Freedom Studio is community. So education is the first pillar. Obviously, we want to educate. We want to provide the highest value education we can to empower you with the knowledge and skills that you would require to be sovereign and to unlock your deeper purpose and mission. But community is the second pillar, and it's very important. Having a community is very valuable, not just here on social media going live. I mean, that's great. Great for us to connect like this. Obviously, it's extremely valuable, but I'm also referring to community getting more involved. That's why we have the Telegram community, for example. We also have a community on Discord, and we may launch other online communities as well. For members, there's a private online community. And once you're in one of those online communities, you can also exchange contact with others and start to build your own local communities, which is something that I want to help foster, is local communities, so that you can meet with people, have a coffee, have a meal with them, get together, and support each other. Okay. So one of the most important things is not to do everything, not to try to do it all alone, but get involved with a community so that when things are a bit overwhelming, or you need some clarity, you always have someone you can turn to. Okay. But the other aspect of answering that question is just to get clarity about where you're taking this. So having your end goals in mind. So when I meet with folks, and I've done hundreds of consultations at this point with you and others, other members like you of this community, and I'm almost always starting with getting clarity on what you want to accomplish. What are your specific mission? What's your specific mission and purpose? So that whatever you're doing is going to align with that. So you're not just all over the place. So sometimes when we're overwhelmed, it's because we don't really have direction. You're not really clear on what you're trying to accomplish. Because if you were, you would carefully align all of your activities around that, and you would start to move out of the way the things that aren't really going to move you towards your objectives. Okay. So get clear on your purpose. And if you need help with that, again, tap into our community. We talk about that a lot on our different private study sessions as part of the memberships. If you want to meet with me privately or with another team member in a consultation, just go to the freedom.studio or to our website and just book a consultation. Those are great for just cutting through a lot of the noise, cutting through a lot of the interference, and just getting right down to what's going to make the biggest difference. Okay. I'm all about clarity, simplicity, focus. Okay. We want to get you focused. And then it'll be very easy for you to answer the question of where to start. So if you're not clear on that, the starting point is to get involved in our community and book a consultation. Awesome. Other questions? I'm not seeing a lot of questions here. Let me go over to Instagram. Nothing, no questions there. Maybe Instagram is stuck. Can't really tell. Let me send a message there. Maybe Instagram got stuck for some reason. Maybe there's a time limit on how long you can go live on Instagram. Oh, no, still going. I just had to restart it over there. I'm learning. I'm learning. You go over to our Telegram. So we have a few people watching on Telegram as well. I guess over there, if you want to ask a question, you can just drop it into the main chat in Telegram. What questions do you guys have? If not, I'll just share some updates about the upcoming workshop series for this year. But I'll give you guys a second to formulate your questions. One Casper Bar says, I have plenty of questions. I can't think of it right now. I must have stage fright. No worries. Just pick one. I love answering your questions. Nothing to be afraid of. Just go ahead and ask a question, and we'll take it from there. Appreciate you guys' questions. So who would like to hear about the new workshop series for 2025? This is kind of the successor to the workshop series I did starting May of last year. By the way, the Freedom Studio, formerly conditionalacceptance.com, was started in April of 2024. So we are actually celebrating our 1-year anniversary. Even though the name has changed, the original organization and this endeavor is 1 year old. So let's celebrate. We can celebrate 1 year. All right, Michael wants to hear about the workshop. So we did a free live workshop last year, starting in May. Actually, I started it on my birthday, which is May 4th last year. And I don't remember how many times we ran it, but at one point we were doing it almost every week. So it was pretty frequent. And it was basically focused on conditional acceptance specifically. Huge attendance. At one point, we had more than 120, 130 people on Zoom. I actually had to upgrade the Zoom account just to accommodate everyone. The workshops would generally last 4, 5, 6 hours in some cases, including all the Q&A. Then we kind of wound it down towards the end of last year, especially as we started to expand the focus. But now coming back with our renewed focus and recognizing the importance of continuing to offer value and workshops where people can interact live online, we are going to be launching a new workshop series, hopefully in May. You know, it's only a month away. I'm a little behind on that, so hopefully it'll be there, you know, early to mid-May. A whole new workshop series, and the provisional title is called The Way of the Sovereign. The Way of the Sovereign. And it's going to be a synthesis of all the most important things that we are teaching at the Freedom Studio. As much value, as much as I can get you from, you know, starting point to push you ahead, to give you clarity on what to focus on, where to go, how to start, you know, for all the things that are important to our members in one workshop. So that's going to be the new workshop series, The Way of the Sovereign. And that should start hopefully in May next month, May of this year. So, and then we will do it similar to the last time. It will be always free to attend, just like the last workshop series. And you just have to enroll. That's all. You would just have to go to the website and enroll. And we'll make it very easy to enroll, just like we did last year. So I look forward to seeing you guys at that workshop. Real Estate Ron says, congrats. Thank you, Ron. I appreciate it. It's great to have a milestone, and these things do matter. One Casper also says, congratulations. Ron is asking if I'm still in Colombia. Yes, I'll be here until the end of May. I'm still getting some dental work done. I also extended my stay because I wanted to spend the winter time here, which has worked out. I probably could have come back by now, but just the scheduling, because I had to get some dental implants done. And the thing about implants is it takes several months for the scars to heal after the extraction. And so it's not like regular dental work where you can just get it all done in a very short time frame. So I've already got most of the dental work done, but the implants still need to be finished, and that's what's taking the long time. So yeah, I'm still here. I will be heading to a new location here in Colombia on Sunday, so you guys will see. And the big hint is I will be right near the beach. I've been spending most of the time inland. Now I'm going to be at the beach. So you guys will see me. Michael says he'll be joining the workshop. That's awesome. Really look forward to seeing you there. It's going to be just like last year. It's going to be interactive, and hope to see you guys there. Cavalia is asking, how much money do you need to open irrevocable trust? Trick answer, there is no money. It's all negotiable instruments. It's all credits. But if you're asking how many credits or FRNs that you need, that depends. That depends on how much you want to invest in, to accelerate the process of learning. The important thing about trusts is you don't hire attorneys to create them for you, because these are private trusts. So you're going to create them yourselves. So you need to learn how to create them and also how to manage them, or you might need to hire trustees to manage it for you. So that would be an additional cost. So it's hard to quantify exactly. I would say if you want to get started more quickly, you can join our trustee network. It's only about $33 a month. So that would be your startup costs, if you want to look at it that way, $33 a month. We meet every single week on Zoom, and there's tons of content. So it could be a quick win to get in and start learning. It's very hands-on. But the actual amount you're going to need is going to vary. Obviously, it depends on the purpose of the trust, the operation of the trust. Is it a business trust? Are you going to use it to operate your business? Is it a family trust? You're probably going to have more than one. So hard to say exactly, but you will need to make some investments of time and resources to make it happen. Kabali says, once I make this big move to a new state, is that a state of mind or a state like a corporate state? Because the state of mind can happen in a second. It usually takes some time, obviously. But just curious about that. I've had problems navigating your site. I don't know. Is anybody else having trouble? Which site? I mean, we have the freedom.studio, and then we have the actual website. Just check the website. Yeah, the website's up and running. Looks great. You're the first person I've heard mention that. So maybe it's on your end. Real Estate Ron asking like what's like living there, obviously referring to Colombia here in South America. I mean, I think Colombia is like a best kept secret. I actually kind of prefer to keep it that way. I wouldn't want the country to be overrun, with people clamoring to get here. I like the fact that it's kind of like a hidden gem, but it's an incredible place. I mean, I could go on and on about it. The natural beauty here is incredible. The people are fantastic. Biodiversity, access to great food, natural resources. I mean, the general state of mind, a lot of things. I mean, no place is perfect. So you're always going to find something to not like. There's obviously dangers, but part of being free, and this is something I think a lot of people struggle with, is if you're always safe, then you're not really free. Okay? Because if you're always safe, in quotation marks, meaning you're shielded from any potential dangers, that can only happen if you're not truly free. Does that make sense? It's incompatible. So if you truly want to be free, you can't expect to always be safe. Anyway, I know a lot of people have a hard time with that. Not that you would be in imminent danger all the time. I'm not suggesting that. You might be without realizing it. I mean, we take risks all the time, calculated risks. Sounds like Kabali is also going through some dental stuff. Yep. And I'm guessing if you're getting it done, I don't know where you live, but if you're living in a Western country like the States or Canada, you're probably paying a pretty penny, so to speak, for it. Can one change or shift a will with a lawyer into the private? Yeah, I mean, you don't actually shift the will. You would take the assets and move it into a private irrevocable trust. And then you would essentially revoke the will. That's very high level, but you can't in other words, you can't take a statutory trust and turn it into a non-statutory trust. You would have to basically take the assets that are, mentioned in the will and move them into a private irrevocable trust, or maybe several. So there'd probably be a couple of steps involved in that process. It would be important to look at the language of the existing will in terms of provisions for making changes to it, and whoever currently is controlling the assets that are under the will, and then just moving those assets into private irrevocable trust, and then essentially revoking the will, or basically undoing it. So it would take a couple of different steps, but it is completely doable. All right. Social media says, where is the best place to learn about equity? I'm glad you asked. Social media, all of social media. Now I'm going to give an answer to all of social media to one of the best questions so far, which is where and how to learn about equity. Okay. The best place is through our private equity mentorship. So let me just bring that up. Give me a second. Let me present here. So this is on our main website. So if you go to thefreedomstudio.org and then just go to the education tab, you'll find equity and trusts. And there's a great page here. So this will walk you through our course, which is called Honor with Equity. It's actually taught by Julian and Margaret Swan. They're not employees of the Freedom Studio, but I call it our course because it's really the only one that we offer through the Freedom Studio. But I'm not claiming ownership of their course. They have their own program, but it's fully integrated into the Freedom Studio. So I would encourage you guys to go read. There's tons of information here. There's even a video. Actually, there's two videos. There's one video that goes through, it's almost a 2-hour video that walks through the concepts of what is equity, So it's basically, if you're not even sure what I'm talking about, you're going to want to watch this video that we did with Julian in January. And then the second part of that is they also have a equity trust system. So if you want to take it deeper, you can take the equity trust system. Again, a lot of detail. There is a video about that one as well. And then you can just reach out through this form. You can either contact Julian on Telegram, or if you're not a Telegram user or you'd rather not use Telegram, you can also send a message through the website. Okay. So the advantage of that is you will be involved in a 13-week graduate level live mentorship with Julian, Margaret, and whoever else is studying in the course. You will have lifetime access to the recordings, and you will have lifetime repeat authorization. In other words, you can keep going back and retaking the course as many times as it's offered. So for example, I'm taking the course for the second time. Okay. So, and you also, once you graduate, you get put into the alumni group, which is, can't remember how many people are in the alumni group. Let me go see if I can quickly see that. Let me see here. How many people? It looks like just over 100, just about 120 in the alumni group. So it's a relatively, it's, small relatively, but growing. It's not a huge community, but it's a growing community. So that would be the number one way to learn equity, because it is graduate level. In other words, it's advanced, because you're basically learning how, you have to learn how to bring equity. You have to learn the concepts and how to stand in equity, which is always staying in honor. It's not a dishonorable process. It's not like filing lawsuits. Okay. Now, if you're not ready to jump into that, because it is a big investment, it's also a big financial investment. It's also a time investment. And if you're more autodidactic, through all of our memberships, which are obviously more affordable, there is an equity module, which has a lot of great self-study material. It's not going to give you the same organized structure as through the mentorship and the same hands-on focus. But if you're really good, if you're very autodidactic and you're good at, you're good at self-study, then that could be a great starting point. And then you can contemplate whether you want to upgrade to the mentorship. But that's what I would recommend. Equity is probably going to be a game changer for most people because it's so widely applicable. Equity is an entire jurisdiction. It's much closer to natural law than even the common law. Equity acts in personam, which means it operates and applies to us, to men and women, not to property, whereas common law typically applies to property. Nothing wrong with common law, but equity has a lot to offer beyond what the common law can offer. So just keep that in mind. And having said that, I need to take a quick break here. Quick bathroom break. So let me make a note here. So people who jump in will know why I'm not here. And I will be right back. Let's see how let me I'll just show the freedom. I'll just show one of our links here while I am away. Let me just present. Okay. All right, I'll be right back. And I am back. How's everybody doing? Social media says, great, appreciate your help. Hey, it's my pleasure. We're in this together, right? Let me see if I missed any of you guys' questions. Let me scroll back here because I think I missed a few comments. Mr. C says, so no information on POAs. Not sure what you're referring to there. Yeah, so I notice sometimes people ask these like detail-oriented questions that are part of a bigger process, and then you're like, well, why aren't you answering those questions? And the answer is very simple. When you, the context, your questions are missing context. So everything we do is in the context of a greater process. So I'll give an example. The secured party / creditor, that's an entire process. And within that process, there are multiple documents. There's a trust, there's a bond, there's filings. So that would be like you coming here and saying, well, what address should I send this and this document to? So the reason I won't answer it here is because it's out of context. And it's important if someone's following a process that they are working through an entire process step by step. And if you are, that means you're working through a course or a program, or you have a mentor, or you're in a program, and they're going to give you the step by step, and they can get all your questions answered. Okay. But these things are, when they're thrown out of context, that's not helping anyone. How does that benefit someone who doesn't even, who's not even taking that process? Okay. So a better question would be, David, how, if I want to learn about the secured party / creditor process, for example, how do I do that? If I want to get all my questions answered, how do I do that? So that would be an example of an appropriate question. All right. So keep your questions high level. We're not going to, I'm not here to troubleshoot your specific process. That can be done either in our private study sessions, or maybe even more appropriately as part of a private consultation. Ideally, whatever process you're working on, you want to be part of a group that's working, where everybody's working on the same process. Again, this idea of community mentorship, so that you can work together with others, and you can also get your questions answered more effectively for the specifics of what you're working on. Okay. So what other questions do you guys have? What other questions do you guys have? Just checking in with the different communities here. So it looks like we have 29 people on this chat. What questions do you guys want to raise? And it looks like Instagram doesn't allow me to stream for more than an hour. So we are probably not streaming on Instagram anymore, but that's okay. Again, Marcelo, same thing I said to Mr. C. you're asking your question out of context. What high level process are you what are your objectives? What are you looking to accomplish? And what high level process are you looking to finalize as part of that? Laurel, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, asks, what is the benefit of adding your utilities into your trusts? Well, first of all, it's not your trust. It's a trust that you could establish as the grantor, or you might be the trustee, but it's not really your trust per se. There could be a couple of advantages of operating utilities within a trust. So it depends on what you're using the trust for. Now, if you're looking to move all of your concerns into a trust, which I think is generally a good idea. For example, if it's a business trust, or if you're looking to operate in commerce, really anything that you're using to operate your business, would you not want it to be an expense of the business or the trust rather than a personal expense? You want to take yourself away from having personal liability for any kind of funny obligation, and instead attach it either to a business or a business trust in this case. So that could be, just from a basic perspective, that's going to be good. It's also going to, it's going to subtract from the profitability of the trust if it's a business trust, which also reduces the tax liability. However, if you learn equity, you'll be able to discharge anyway, so it's not a big deal to discharge your taxes. Another advantage, it's a little more advanced, but another advantage is if you combine your business trust with, for example, being a secured party / creditor, and then you can establish with your bank the ability to start tendering negotiable instruments, then you may actually be able to discharge your business expenses month after month, which could include things like utilities. So that would be an advantage. And of course, having utilities in your business and the name of your business helps you to build up your business credit, because when you have these recurring expenses and they are reporting to the business credit agencies, that improves your business credit. So there could be several different layers of advantages to doing that. So let's see what people are asking. Frank asks, are you familiar with your unalienable birthright to travel and own property? I have no idea what you're talking about, Frank. Just kidding. Did you have, what's your specific question, though? Am I familiar with what rights are? How do we get access to the Telegram? Great question. Just go to the freedom.studio, and it's the third link, the freedom.studio, and then just scroll down to the third link. It'll say join the private Telegram. Hey, David, could you please tell me what the exact documents are to fill out for the status correction process? Yes, but that would be done in one of our programs, because we have programs to help people go through that. And frankly, whoever you work with will have slight variations of those documents. I can make reference to a few of them just to get you started. Usually it's, let me pull that up here. I'll just mention a few things. This is just at a high level. This is not meant to be to teach you how to do the process, because I'm not going to be able to do that on a live. But let me just pull that up real quick, and I'll just make mention of it. Give me a second. So here, I'll just read out what some of the example documents will be. But again, when you're doing a process like a status correction, always work with a specific group or program or course or mentor or community, so that you're not reinventing the wheel. Okay. But for example, the process that I used, that I completed, had a declaration of political status, which was inspired by Patrick Devine, restoration of former status, Declaration of the Naturalization Act of July 1779. Witness testimony affirming American state political status and identity acknowledgement. Acceptance and deed of reconveyance or conveyance certificate of assumed name. Declaration of copyright. Act of expatriation. There's actually 3 of those. Each one is based on a different variation of your all caps name. Cancellation of all prior powers of attorney. I know there were some comments about powers of attorney, so there you go. Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, DNA paramount claim, and common carry declaration. So for those of you who want to dive in deeper to those documents and more, come join one of our memberships, or even better, if you specifically want to correct your status, we do have a status correction. You'll find it under the education tab of our website. Anna Maria asks, after we correct our status, we'll be able to self-actualizate trust and become the beneficiary. I kind of know what you're asking, but that's not really how it works. Okay. When you correct your status, all that means is you're letting the public side know that you are private. You're creating a separation between you and the public and your public entity. But the self-actualization trust, which I think I know what you're referring to, which is the account with the Treasury, you're not ever going to be able to put your hand directly into that pot. And there's a lot of people that claim that you can, and there's a lot of people making big promises, and that's not how it works. Okay. You can indirectly use that benefit because there is no money. It's all negotiable instruments. You can indirectly, through equity, for example, use your signature to discharge, which has the effect of leveraging the credits, but you can't go directly and cash it out. Okay, I have yet to see anyone do that. There's a lot of processes out there that claim that you can just go and cash out your Treasury account, and I've never seen anyone be successful at that. Okay, but you can use it indirectly through equitable, for example, equitable discharge. Or if you become a secured party creditor and you establish a specific account with the Treasury, which is through the $100 million bond, then you're going to be able to potentially write negotiable instruments against that instrument, which is an instrument that you established. Okay. But you're not going to be able to go put your hand directly in the cookie jar. I'm just telling you, because you don't own those accounts. Okay. You didn't create them. You didn't set them up. So I'm not sure why people struggle with that. But you know, the remedy is you can discharge with your signature through acceptance. Okay. Marcelo says, I'm a member, first time I'm hearing about it. So have you been showing up to the private study sessions? Have you been asking questions at the private study sessions? Have you been watching the replays? I mean, there's always going to be something new to learn. I'm not sure what you're referring to. It's great to have you here, but I would say if you are a member, definitely show up to all the study sessions because that's where the real magic happens. So I would say if you are showing up, just ask more questions. Come to a study session and kind of put forth, here's what I'm trying to accomplish. How would you go about doing this? Here's what I'm trying to accomplish. How would you go about, like, what would you suggest or recommend that I focus on? Okay. So that way we can custom tailor it because everybody's unique. I don't know what you're specifically faced with. I know we have common objectives sometimes and we have common struggles, but I don't know what you're specifically looking to accomplish. So without knowing your specifics, it's hard for me to give you the best suggestions or recommendations. Anna says, thank you, David. I appreciate you, Anna. You know, having you and others in this community is that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. So it's a real pleasure to have you here. So what other questions do you guys have? Okay, while you guys are thinking about your questions, let me do a quick screen share here. I want to show you a few more things on our websites. Give me a second. Go ahead and queue up your questions in the meantime. So let me just share. Okay, so going back to the website, we have a couple of different services that I want to show you guys. So under the services tab, actually, let me just kind of give you a quick orientation. So obviously that's the home page. If you are a member and you forget, hey, how do I log in? That was one of the most common questions we used to get. So just click on member login. It would also prompt you to join if you're not a member. Under education, we have a couple of different offerings. We have Lawful Foundations 101. That's Kathleen's introductory course. So you can check that out. Equity and trust, I've already mentioned that. Status correction for those of you who want to do that. Secured party creditor as well. Here's another link to our memberships. And then there's a page where you can watch all of our YouTube videos on the website. Under services, we have a couple of different services. We have some pretty advanced services if you want to set up a PMA, private member association. Those are Kathleen is basically leading those. There's an option if you want to get help building business credit or repairing your personal credit. There's also trust creation and management services. If you want to schedule a consultation, there is the private coaching and mentorship. That's people who want to work with either Kathleen or myself over a longer period of time. And then we have a new service here, fractional IT support for sovereignpreneurs. A lot of you guys are small business owners or business owners, but you don't really have the time or the expertise to work on all the system side of it. But it's not going to be cost effective to go out and hire an IT director or something to run a small business. So we have what's called fractional IT support, where for a very small fee per system, we can provide you guys with support. So that's a relatively new service that we're offering. So go check those out. In the meantime, Anna has a question. So everybody corrects their own status. So when your children, typically when they become of age, the age of majority, they would do their own filings. And so in the meantime, you can kind of educate them on what it all means and what the purpose of everything is. So the time they reach the age of majority, they'll be ready to do their own filing. But we don't file on other people's behalf. So it's always, you're always doing your own status correction. You're always correcting your own status. Okay. It's a very good question. What other questions do you guys have? What other questions do you guys have? Because if not, we're probably going to wrap up. And I'll just mention for fun, I'm staying at this hotel I'm staying at. I've kind of become friends with the staff, and we're all going out for karaoke tonight. That's going to be fun. I'm probably not going to live stream that, but we are going out for karaoke. We went out for live music last weekend, which was great. Social media asks, do credit card companies accept coupon payments often? I would say, based on the data I've seen, rarely, if ever. I don't have a hard number, but I would say rarely, if ever. If someone else has a counter example that they want to demonstrate, that's great, but I have not seen evidence that they hardly ever accept endorsed coupons as a payment. And that's why I recommend, well, if you want to discharge a credit card, like I said earlier, if you discharge it in equity, it's just going to close the account. So that probably wouldn't be a good strategy if you want to keep setting off the account month after month and keeping it open. So what you might want to do in that case is establish business credit and open up a business credit card with your business or your business trust, and then combine that with your SPC to discharge through your business. That's a bit of a more advanced strategy, but you can certainly try it. But like I said, from all the data I've seen, these coupon payments rarely get accepted. It's not like they never get accepted. Okay, let me just clarify. I'm not saying they never, ever accept them. They will sometimes. And I suspect that number is going down as more and more people try it. So just keep that in mind. Freedom Studio offers business credit. Actually, we don't offer business credit. We help you to obtain business credit. We can teach you how to obtain it, but we don't offer it. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. What if we don't have a business? Well, start a business. Everything is commercial. We live, the whole world is commercial. Business could be as simple as, when I was a kid, when I was 11 years old, I went selling greeting cards door to door. I had a business when I was 11. And I've told this story before, but for folks who haven't heard it, my main motivation was I didn't like the fact that I was dependent on my parents' allowance, which essentially was a form of socialism, if you want to put it that way, or communism. I would get a fixed allowance in exchange for having to, follow all these different rules that I, like cleaning, doing endless chores at home. Not that I was opposed to helping out, but it was basically a dictatorship. And I had no control over certainly how much I would earn or, my efforts. So that's what motivated me to go out and do that. A lot of kids do lemonade stands. So all a business is you are providing value into the world and you're getting value back. Okay. So there's a fair exchange. You're getting compensated for the value. So that's all you need to have a business. Okay. Some people say, well, how do I start a business? Do consulting. You're good at something. There's something that you're good at that you can help others be good at. So you can teach them, you can consult, you can advise. Okay. Super easy to start a business. You can just start a business informally and then go back and start to fill in the gaps as far as, your actual paperwork. Yes. What's your opinion on the 1099 ESV? My honest opinion, big waste of time. Huge waste of time. Okay. I haven't seen a single individual other than those who brought those processes forth actually getting a remedy. And I've also heard several stories of people who've gotten that remedy, a similar kind, extracting funds from the treasury. And then, years later, they get thrown into prison for fraud. Okay. So don't try to game the system in weird ways. You already have a remedy through equity. You just need to learn how to bring it. You should just be focused on how, if you're struggling financially, which I know is the main motivation of why people go after these processes. The question you should be asking yourself is, how can I increase the amount of value that I create in the world so that I can get compensated more? Okay. Because the simplest solution is always the correct one. If you're not receiving enough, give more to receive more. It's really that simple. I don't know. I couldn't put it in more simple terms. Not getting enough, give more of yourself, add more value to the world. Okay. You'll see that your bank account balance will start going up. That's the solution. But I was briefly kind of trolling these groups like the Recoupers group. So, I mean, it's like, I know those groups are blowing up and just, huge time sink. I've talked to a few people privately who tried those processes and nothing ever came out of it. Okay. Someone wants to challenge me, contact me privately and show me what you've been able to get, what results you've gotten. I'm always happy to be corrected. But let me phrase the question this way. Can you ever get something for nothing, based on natural law? Can you ever get something for nothing based on natural law? Anna asked, would I be able to discharge a mortgage without status correction? Yes, using equity, you could. However, I would still take you still want to learn to bring equity properly, and you may also want to protect your assets before you start that process, just in case something happens. Okay, but yes, equity does not require any particular status. So when you're learning how to bring equity, you don't even need to do a status correction. Marcelo asks, if someone has a business and got a number, what kind of number? You guys need to be more specific. Don't be lazy, be specific. They would argue about going back to this 1099 process. Yeah, show me, like, what work are they actually doing as the trustee? I mean, let's get real here. Okay, being a trustee, an actual trustee, for example, of a trust that you set up or a trust that you're invited to be a trustee, because you shouldn't be the grantor and the trustee. But let's say someone sets up a trust and you're the trustee. Yeah, I mean, of course, you're going to be compensated fairly and reasonably based on the work that you provide. And trustees should be compensated. But this notion that you're like, I think in the Recoupers, they were talking about $250,000 a year for being a trustee of this, that you're not even the trustee. You're just claiming to be the trustee. And I mean, what the F are you actually doing as the trustee? I mean, it's actually an embarrassment to those of us who actually want to be good trustees, and take the job of trustee seriously. Okay. That's kind of how I feel about it. Freaking waste of time. Is it smart to use your all caps name as a business? Short answer, no. Short answer would be no. What other questions do you guys have? Feed the bear, feed the bear. We had a few good questions come in. I got really energized by that question about the 1099 and Recoupers. Keep asking those good questions. Love to see you guys active. What other questions do you guys have? Jen asked, can I pay my car off with a 1099A? No, but there are ways to discharge your car. There are ways to discharge a car loan. Equity would be one. If you're a secured party / creditor, you could also use your negotiable instruments to do it as well. And then Paul Michael from Creditor Academy recently talked about a whole process using a different 1099 form. I didn't fully cognize the process and I haven't tried it, but if you go back and watch some of his recent videos, he talked about using a different 1099 process to do it, not the 1099A. What other questions do you guys have? The 1099A, I think, what I was able to assess is there was a certain window of time when people were, getting that to work. Apparently, again, I don't really, I mean, a lot of it is hearsay. Who knows if people are really being honest about it? And then they probably closed up the loophole that would prevent people from using that form in that way. What do you think about the process of Trump reportedly did an ACV? Well, accepted for value is not an actual term. There's no legal reference to accepted for value. There is acceptance, and what you learn in equity is acceptance. So you could certainly accept an equity. If you're a secured party / creditor and you have that $100 million bond properly established, you could technically write negotiable instruments against the value of that bond, which could have the effect of setting off an account. But accepted for value, I think is, from my understanding, is basically a fabricated concept. But I haven't seen what you're talking about. I would need to see, someone would need to show me what the actual documents are. And then I could, we could take a look at them. Anna asks, is it possible to retrieve taxes from the IRS using 1090C? I have no idea. Haven't even considered that. I do tend to look at things now in the eyes of equity, and equity does not aid a volunteer. So when you voluntarily pay your taxes with FRNs, equity doesn't have a remedy for you. However, the good news is when you have a tax obligation that you have yet to pay with FRNs, then equity has a beautiful remedy for you, and that's acceptance. So the good news is, moving forward, you can always accept your tax presentments to discharge them once you learn how to bring equity. And I have, based on what I've seen, equity is the most favorable way to discharge taxes, and it's recognized by the tax bureau, by the IRS. Chris Hauser shows things about 10. Great. Well, Chris Hauser is one man. Let's, if this process works, let's see evidence of multiple people demonstrating that they were able to achieve whatever the outcome is. Okay. In other words, let's have multiple people. We have a pretty big community at the Freedom Studio. So let's, there must be someone in the community who's been able to do it. What's your opinion on 1099B? I have no opinion because I've never heard of what you just said, and I don't have an opinion of that. I mean, I would need to study these forms, but my initial sense is, if you're trying to get something for nothing, good luck. Good luck. That's not what we really focus on at the Freedom Studio. We're not focused on getting something for nothing. We're focused on being men and women of very high value, stepping into our sovereignty, and self-actualizing. So the quality of the questions is kind of going down a little bit, and we've been going for about almost an hour 40. So I'm probably going to wrap up soon. I appreciate everybody who's joined me today. Appreciate you. Hope to see you again in our community. Let me just drop that link one more time. Okay, it's the freedom.studio. Everything you need is there. I'll share my screen here one more time just to show you guys. Just share my screen. Okay, so you go to the freedom.studio, that's what you're going to see. The first link is the high-level strategy. It's a PDF that kind of walks through the high-level points of what we focus on at the Freedom Studio. So it's a great starting point if you're not sure where to start. It is free to download. Then we have our memberships. Memberships do have a monthly cost, but they start very low, $7.77. We've never raised the price of the membership in a year, and I frankly don't have plans to change it. There are higher tiers and new memberships, of course, if you want to go deeper. Then we have our Telegram community, which is free to join. Some of you guys were asking about that. It's a great place to commingle with others. We have almost 4,000 members. We've gotten great feedback about the Telegram community and the value that it offers. If you are looking for more one-on-one help, great place to do is to book a private consultation, either with me or another team member. You'd be surprised how much progress we can make in 1 hour of sitting down together and cutting through all the layers, all the resistance, whatever's going on, to figure out what's going to be the shortest path to get you from where you are right now to your specific goals and objectives. So I want to invite you to consider that. And then there's some more links there as well. So keep exploring that. If you haven't done so, obviously, please subscribe or follow us on whatever social media platform you happen to be watching this. We had about 20-ish people the entire time that we were live today, give or take. So I really appreciate you. We had some familiar faces, maybe some new faces, some really good questions, some not great questions, but the fact that you asked the question is okay. I mean, if I push back, it's just because I want you to ask better questions. Okay, so I'm not hating on you if you asked a question that I kind of gave you some pushback on. It's great that you're asking questions. Okay, I want to keep encouraging. I just want to make that clear. So I appreciate all you guys a lot. Thank you so much for joining me today. And of course, I will see you guys hopefully very soon, hopefully at one of our live events coming up, or our live workshops, or one of our study sessions. So thank you everyone for joining today. I really appreciate you. Thank you very much.